Our favorite legal panel joins us now. Two New York trial attorneys, two of the best, Mercedes, Colwin, and Misty Marris. M&M, we call them here. We should get a graphic made for you two. So thank you both for coming back on this. I want to go right back up to Clarence Thomas with Kelly cited, but this time we'll put it on the screen. Bump stock does not convert a semi-automatic rifle into a machine gun any more than a shooter with a lightning-fast trigger finger does. Even with a bump stock, semi-automatic rifle will fire only one shot for every function of the trigger, so a bump stock cannot qualify as a machine gun. Your reaction when you saw this ruling, Misty?
So it's really about the power of administrative federal agencies, which has been something that the Supreme Court has been scaling back on now that we have a conservative court. So what this is about is whether or not the ATF had the ability to expand the definition of what a machine gun is to include a bump stock. So yes, it absolutely is something that will make bump stocks more readily available because now there isn't a federal rule on the books relating to it. But I was not surprised to see the Supreme Court taking away power from the regulatory agencies to actually make those determinations. So that's what we were just hearing from Kelly Meyer, that now it's time for Congress to act, for Congress to pass legislation on this issue because they're the ones that hold that power. And one more thought on that, there are 15 states who do regulate bump stocks and have outlawed them. And this decision has no impact on that because it was directly relating to the federal agency power, not necessarily the law itself or bump stocks.
To your point about Congress, Andy Kim, Congressman, Democrat, New Jersey, who's running for Senate, says the following: this ruling fails the American people. 60 lives were stolen, hundreds injured at that Las Vegas shooting, Vegas Route 91 festival, just over 10 minutes with the help of bump stocks. I voted, he says, to outlaw them to stop their carnage. Today's ruling makes it critical Congress pass a ban now to save lives. And that's basically what the court is saying, not endorsing it, Mercedes, but saying, hey, it's up to you, Congress. We had no other choice but to do what we did.
Arnold, you're exactly right. Misty, those are great points. It boils down to this. No, everyone wants to make sure that the massacre and the carnage that occurs at the hands of these guns that are proliferated throughout the country are stopped. We all know that. But really what it boils down to is their three-tier government. You have your legislative, you have your judiciary, and you have your executive. Obviously, executive branch is President Biden and his chamber. But then you go down to the judiciary, and what SCOTUS is saying is simply this. It is not for the regulatory agencies like ATF and other regulatory agencies to make these types of determinations. It's up to the legislative branch, which is Congress. They really just punted it. And frankly, just as Justice Alito said, now Congress can act because now these murky waters are eliminated, and now you can focus on how to stop the gun violence if this is what it would take to remove this from commerce.
Okay, so while we're talking about shootings and the like, I do want to get a comment from you guys on this Alex Jones story, if we can. Of course, Alex Jones is crazy conspiracy theorist who was on making up all kinds of lies about the Sandy Hook families, and then he was found to be liable for defamation there, and his personal assets now are going to be sold off to help pay the debt as the judge decides. Infowars is his company, so they're going to force him to sell off his assets. The guy's got a decent amount of money, Misty, but I think his house is protected from this. So even if he sells off his his company and whatever other assets they make him sell off, yeah, these families will get some money, but not anything like what they were rewarded, right?
Right. The judgment's like $1.2 billion, of course, because of the trauma that these families underwent when he was saying that everything was fake, it was a hoax, and they had so many lost lives in Sandy Hook. So here's what happened, though, Connell. So originally, he claimed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Chapter 11 prioritizes debt. And what the families had said is that he was surreptitiously moving assets to protect his assets from collection. So now this is being converted into Chapter 7. That means liquidation of assets in order to get that pool of money and as much as they possibly can to satisfy the judgment.
So it's basically the best they could hope for, right, Mercedes? I guess in a case like this against a guy like this, what would you say about it, and also say about the First Amendment in this country versus defamatory language, which was clearly the case here with Alex Jones?
I mean, we all know the First Amendment is not unfettered. There are controls in place, especially if you have the type of rhetoric, like Alex Jones has been convinced a jury of, at least those who sued him, convinced a jury of, is that that's dangerous talk. His talk was dangerous. His talk is libelous. His talk is defamatory. And there's significant injury as a result of it. So for those out there who believe that the First Amendment's unfettered, they can say and say anything they want to, you will not have the support under the law, under common law, to allow that to occur. If your language is injurious to others, there will be a price to pay. And in this price, Alex Jones is $1.2 billion ticket is a very significant price for him to pay.
It was a huge price, and these people had his followers coming after them, they said, online and elsewhere. So, good, at least they'll get something out of him. Thank you, Misty, and thank you, Mercedes. We appreciate that. We want to get a note in